What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. And today we're talking about the quarterbacks. We're about halfway through the summer training camp, if you will. No starter has been announced, and there's a conversation to be had about where exactly things stand, specifically with Quinn Ewers and whether or not he's where everybody would want him to be and what that means for the upcoming season. Look, do us a solid. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, get notifications, tell your mama, tell your papa, do all of those things. Anwar, as it relates to Quinn Ewers, your head is where exactly with this freshman phenom that the Longhorns are expecting to have as their starting quarterback, a guy that has Heisman odds that are only slightly worse than Bijan Robinson. I just think it's a fascinating ongoing conversation that the Texas football program as a whole has with its young quarterback.
So let me preface it by saying, Ketch, I still believe in Quinn Ewers. I still believe in his upside. And I still believe when it's all said and done that, when Quinn Ewers walks out of the UT program, that we'll say he was, a good to potentially great quarterback that was there. But what we're starting to see, Ketch, is he's not going to hit the ground running probably in the season opener. I think what we're starting to see and what we're starting to outline here is that we all of us who believe in Quinn are probably going to have a little bit more patience for the growing process that's going to have to happen, the developing that is going to need to happen. And I think this year more than any, Catch me, there can't be a panic button that's hit after week 2 that if it doesn't go the way you think it's supposed to go, now all of a sudden, now you got to go to another guy. I think this is going to be a quarterback that he's going to learn, he's going to grow, he's going to develop, because I really feel like, maybe around that mid-season mark is when he starts to get comfortable. But I when we start talking about the offensive line and what's going to be in front of him and what those challenges are going to be, we talk about missing as Isaiah Nayor, and then you talk about a young man who's starting to learn, okay, this is what it takes to be a college quarterback and all that entails. And we're less than 3 weeks away from the season opener. I think you got to say, all right, let's just have some realistic expectations on him. Let's scratch the Heisman odds. That was cool, fun story. Scratch all that. And I think we're going to say he's going to need some time to grow and develop.
Yeah, I feel like you've got this like round hole and a square peg, right? And the round hole says Texas needs to have an all Big 12 level quarterback, because this is a conversation we've been having for years now. You got to have this level of quarterback play that allows you to compete and win a Big 12 championship, largely because the competition for most of those years has been Oklahoma, and their quarterback play has been so high. So there's this need that the program has, which has to be among the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, because that's what you need to win the championship at this level. That's the need. And there's this constant forcing of what you have to try to squeeze it into this square hole or this round hole. And if it doesn't fit, to hell with it, cram it in there. In 2022, what you have is this need that might not automatically be able to be filled by what you actually have. And, I think eventually Quinn Ewers is a guy that's going to get there. He is the number 1 ranked player in his grade classification for a reason. But the quarterback position is hard. And the Longhorns currently have their top 2 primary quarterbacks are a guy that's really never played in a game while playing in a game. The Louisiana opener last season being the exception. And I think there's just a process, and we constantly hear it's like a cliche of trust the process. I think you have to have that with the quarterback position and Quinn Ewers. You have to trust that the quarterback whisperer, Steve Sarkisian, will get him there. But at no point in the trust the process kind of mantra is there a absolute guarantee that it starts out super high and you hit the ground running or flying. I just think that in this camp, and really since he's arrived on campus, we just are all being reminded this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Even if your demands, even if your needs are that it be so, it's just not that easy.
Yeah, and Catch, when you start thinking about, the Sarkisian, they talk about the quarterback room that he had at Alabama, right? And I start thinking about here, the benefit of when you build up the quarterbacks is that you have guys who are able to sit, watch, listen, and learn, right? From guys who are older. Like who's Quinn learning from right now? He's learning from Sarkisian, but who's he been able to watch? Casey Thompson had somewhat of an advantage because he got to sit and watch Sam Ehlinger for a number of years. So he was able to sit and watch, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you prepare. This is how you become a leader. This is the amount of studying that needs to go into it. And this is what you need to do in order to be successful. And when Casey finally had a chance, we saw that. Quinn doesn't have that benefit. Quinn's being thrown into the fire. So to a certain degree, when we hear reports that, okay, yeah, Quinn has got to learn how to do a little bit more studying and all that kind of stuff. And it's easy to say, oh man, like why does he know that? But then the question is, who's going to learn that from? Who was there to teach him? Who was there to groom him? And so that's when you start thinking about, okay, he's learning. He's going to be learning in real time. Like that's what we're going to be seeing. And Catch it again when I think of Sam Ehlinger. Sam Ehlinger statistically leaves the University of Texas statistically as one of the better quarterbacks who's ever played at this school. But we remember his freshman season, Catch. That was not pretty. And when he was spending time with Shane Buechele, there were certain times you said to yourself, what the hell is going on? Certain throws that you said to yourself, what the hell just happened here? I'm not going to make everyone relive all the throws, but you remember that. We lived it, did post-game shows about it. And I think that's why I look at him. Yeah, Steve Sarkisian, totally going to be the quarterback whisperer, right? He's got that guy that can grow and mold and all those kind of things. But then also the realistic aspect is that there's going to be some growing pains. Even Casey Thompson had some growing pains. And some of it was injury related, but some of that, golly, you saw that video Catch about the overthrown balls to Xavier Worthy and how cringeworthy that was. With Quinn, without the ability of being able to sit like that you would assume Arch has, right? When Arch is going to come in, Quinn would have played for a couple of years. Arch at least has a year to sit, maybe the way like Bryce Young had the ability to sit before he was able to kind of get thrown in the fray. With Quinn not having that, I think for me, I'm just like, okay, all right, man, let's just see what happens and hope as time goes throughout the season, you learn, you grow, Sarkisian helps you, but he ends up kind of being a little bit of a guinea pig without having someone older above him and being able to watch.
Yeah, it just leads me to the ultimate question of this video, which is what are the August expectations for what is going to happen with Quinn over the course of this season? In the months leading up to this, most of the questions have centered around 3,500 yards passing, 3,000 yards passing. Do you think he throws 30 touchdowns? And, you turn around and you say, guys, in the history of the Texas program, there haven't been that many guys that have thrown 30 touchdowns in a season. But everybody's had their foot on the gas. All gas, no brakes, right? So the question is, what should we now that we know look, there's still time in practice leading up to the first game. The proverbial light switch could flip on, but I think we've just talked it out. This is a process. And maybe it's October, November when you really start to see the best of Quinn Ewers. What does that mean over 12 games? What is a realistic set of expectations for him that we can judge him by that don't include numbers for Heisman odds?
So I'll go to Casey, and then you tell me what you would expect, say higher or lower as relates to it, okay? So Casey last season, 2,113 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So let's do yards, TDs, and INTs, right? So if higher than 2,100, would you consider that to be successful, Catch? Like it, that I guess it is.
Well, yeah, because that means he played 12. That's a 12-game deal. So it's almost impossible for me to think that he wouldn't hit those numbers if he plays all of the games from a passing yard standpoint.
So then if he went over 2,500, would we say that was successful?
God, I've had the number 3,000 in my head for so long, over 12 games, because at that point, you're talking like 250 yards a game to hit 3,000. I think if he plays 12 games, he has to hit 3,000 yards. And I don't know that by itself means he played good quarterback play. But if you're playing 12 games and you're averaging 250 yards a game, at least you're giving yourself a chance. If it's less than that, then it means this passing game never really took off, I think, at an elite level. And I think there are, or even a borderline elite level. And I think at that point, we know that this season probably never reached great heights if he can't average 250 plus a game healthy over 12 games.
So here's what's interesting, Catch. That you're right. So think about this for a second, though, Catch. Brock Purdy, I have the stats in front of me. Brock Purdy threw for 3,188 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And that led the Big 12 last season in passing yards. Spencer Sanders finishes at number 3 with 2,800 yards, 2,831, 20 TDs, and 12 touchdowns. So essentially, based off of last year's stats, if we're saying 3,000, we're almost talking about him leading the Big 12 in passing yards, which
except most of those guys are just okay. I mean, yeah, I know Brock Purdy's playing on Sundays. Right? Well, he may make a roster that allows him to play on Sundays, but he was very average and at times below average a year ago, which is why Iowa State's season never really took off. Spencer Sanders, just pretty good. I mean, the level of quarterback, the good news for Texas is the level of quarterback play in the Big 12 has declined to the point where you didn't have a Heisman finalist in Norman last year at the quarterback position. And I don't think anybody's expecting that this year. But you do make a good point. I mean, 3,000 yards a year ago puts you right near the top of the Big 12. And I think Casey Thompson would have done that had he been healthy and started the entire season. I also wonder what it would have looked like had Caleb Williams played all 12 games instead of Spencer Rattler starting and then kind of getting the hook midseason, and then Caleb Williams comes in. I think 3,000 yards needs to be the minimum bar, but I will say that knowing that you just made an excellent point, I will confess to establishing a fairly high bar for Quinn Ewers this season, but it's not the elite of the elite bar that we would have asked Sam Ehlinger to hit. We're basically saying, can you hit Sam Ehlinger numbers in terms of passing efficiency? Can you be a 155 type guy, which isn't setting the world on fire?
Yeah,
it is in between great play and mediocre play. And I think that's where you really want Ewers to be. What we don't know right now is whether or not he's below that and kind of a mediocre player, and whether or not he climbs and surpasses that before this season is over. I would offer that right now, Quinn Ewers isn't a plus college football player. Otherwise, he would already be named the starting quarterback at Texas. Contrary to what Sarkisian keeps saying to the press, which is both of these guys are competing at a really high level. Well, how many turnovers did the offense have? Well, 3 interceptions and 4 balls hit the ground, and we took a number of sacks. This position isn't yet a plus position. The yardage thing, like I said, though, is a bit deceptive because over 12 games, you could probably add, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, but add Rattler and Williams together, or even add Hudson Card with Casey Thompson's numbers together. I wonder what that looks like. I think the touchdowns and interceptions may be the numbers that really define this season. Casey threw 9 picks a year ago. Yeah. At this point, if you told me Quinn plays all 12 games, I do think he'll throw more than 9 interceptions.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, like when I'm looking at the interception, when I go to the interception leaders from last season, Spencer Sanders had 12. How do you say this West Virginia kid's last name? Jarrett. I don't want to butcher his last name. How do you say it?
Jarrett Dagey.
Dagey, thank you.
But he's not even the starting quarterback there anymore.
Okay, but he had 12. Probably why he's not starting. Casey had 9.
Casey had 9, and that was like half a season, right? I mean,
yeah, he was good for some. Brock Purdy had 8, and another guy who's not starting anymore, Jerry Bohannon, had 7.
I mean, I think he's. I'll always remember that Colt McCoy in his second season Anwar, I think the number was 17 interceptions. That's a lot. And he ended up becoming an elite player the next season, but he ended that year with real question marks around him because of that inability to play clean games. Until Quinn can prove it, it's the playing. I expect there to be some highs with Quinn Ewers from Jump Street. Like, I think against Louisiana Monroe, you're going to see him connect with Xavier Worthy on a big pass play that can make Sports Center. But I think at least once a game, you're going to have a, oh, no, kind of a moment until he no longer has those oh, no kinds of moments. They're still happening in practice. It feels like that's the kind of thing that will translate over to Saturdays. I think Texas fans have to prepare themselves for the fact that once or twice a game, this kid's going to make a mistake, and it'll be the team's ability to overcome that. How good is your sudden change defense? If he throws a pick inside your own 30-yard line, can you force the team to kick a field goal instead of giving up 7 points? The margins will, I think, determine how well this team does from a record standpoint. He's going to make a lot of good plays. He's going to have some stinkers inside of that. I think he breaks double digits in interceptions. Now, is it 10 or is it 4? You know what I mean? Like, okay, I think you could manage 10. That actually averages out to less than 1 per game. But it's not like we haven't seen young quarterback play struggle with this in the past. And I don't know. Like, I don't have a great answer. But this would be the one area where I'm not holding him up to a high standard. I think the yards will be there. I think the touchdowns will be there. In over 12 games, I think he throws more touchdown passes than Casey did a year ago. But from a mistake standpoint, I don't know how to quantify that other than to say, at the moment, I don't have a high standard set for him.
All right, so Ketch is, when you start thinking of first-year players, first-year quarterbacks in the history of Texas, who are the guys that you would say you would rank? Because you typically rank them once their season is done, and their career is done. But even Vince didn't light it up, as a quote unquote freshman. So
there's only one good one.
Who? Yeah, I was going to say who.
Colt McCoy in 2006, coming off of that national championship season, he was surrounded by NFL players, including an offensive line that had 4 NFL players playing on it, on the offensive line, 3 of which were seniors. And I think he threw like 28 touchdown passes and had maybe 5 or 6 picks. It may not even have been that high. I'm not looking at the numbers right now. But like I said, the next year, some of that was luck. In 2006, I can remember him throwing balls off his back foot into the end zone that were going off of defenders' hands and landing into the hands of his receivers. And it was like, oh, my God, this guy's just got a little bit of magic. And then the very next year, the turnovers went through the roof. And it was like, okay, he's regret.
I got the numbers for you to back up everything you're saying. So, wow. And good memory on you. In 2006, 2,570 passing yards, Catch, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 161.8 passer rating. 2007, to your point, 3,303 passing yards. So it goes up, but then we go 22 touchdowns, 18 interceptions.
Yeah.
So everything you're saying is correct.
And I think that so Colt almost went to New York as a Heisman finalist that freshman season had it not been for an injury late in the year against Kansas State, which they lost the Kansas State game in a shootout that he didn't play in. And then the next week they lost at home to Texas A&M in a game where the A&M just battered the poor kid. Mm-hmm. The next year, again, he regresses to the mean a little bit, and those turnover numbers went way up. And they limited his responsibility in 2006. In 2007, they put it all on his shoulders. Maybe that's what we've got to figure out with this team. They have on paper the running backs in the running game to take some pressure off of Quinn Ewers. But if they can't week in and week out really thrive, first and foremost with their running game, and instead you're asking Quinn to win games for you, that feels like it could be problematic. I mean, we've talked about he and Bijan as a 1-2 tandem that could be the best in the Big 12 at their positions. Well, if Quinn's not there yet, it really, I think, means that Bijan has to be special this year. Special with a capital S. And then if you're able to do that, maybe the passing yards go down. Maybe he doesn't quite break 3,000, but maybe your turnovers go way down as well. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud right now, but the answer for how do you get the best out of Quinn Ewers at this point has to be run the hell out of the football, keep defenses honest, and then at least he's going to get some single coverage. He's going to get an extra guy in the box. It's not roaming the secondary like a ball hawk. I mean, ultimately one hand has to help the other. And I don't feel like we've just talked about this offense is going to average 40 points and look how good they were a year ago and now they should be better. And so we've talked about the expectations being so high that it's a little strange to walk that back a little bit. Because if you ask me today, do I think Texas is going to average 40 points a game on offense? A month ago, I'd have been like, yeah, no, I think that's going to happen. And today, I don't quite feel that. And the season hasn't started, but I'm walking back my hyperbole from earlier in the summer. And to be fair, a lot of that has to be due to the fact that they no longer have Isaiah Nayor. They no longer have Junior Angilau. And those two losses, which we discussed at length on the Monday Overreaction show yesterday, plays a big role in recalibrating what my expectations are for this position and for Quinn Ewers specifically.
Yeah, Ketch, when we talk about like readjusting the expectations, some of it, is what you're talking about, the injuries, like the Nayor and Angilau, and people are going to say, well, we're just overreacting over injuries, next man up. But there's also the other portion of that, Ketch, which is the things that we've heard, your sources, my sources about, Quinn and his need to maybe get a little bit more the study habits to improve and get a little bit better, not deaf, doom, and instruction, but this is like a natural progression for a young quarterback. And so that's where we start saying like, it's walking back. But now, after hearing these things this week, of course, the scrimmage and, some will say, well, the defense won the day and that's all that matters. And you and I will say, okay, let's see if this defense is better than the hundreds before we start going in that route. So I think as relates to Quinn, like I said, I think, Catch, for me, when it's all said and done, my final statement would be when it's all said and done, I'm sure we've been talking about a young man who ended up having a really good career at Texas. But as we are less than 3 weeks away from Louisiana, Alabama, UTSA, and then going on the road at Texas Tech, a lot of firsts for him, right, Catch? I mean, he's going to go against Bama, which is going to be a killer team. You and Texas Tech, I mean, again, I have to joke about it. When you told me about Arkansas all the last season, and I was like, Arkansas, Catch, what the hell are you talking about? That team is nothing. And then of course Arkansas ends up being like a 9-win team, and really had their breakout game there. You got to go to Texas Tech, go to Lubbock, and that is a wild environment as well. So there'll be a lot of learning. There'll be a lot of firsts that'll be there. But I think the whole 3,500, 30 touchdowns, eight interceptions. I think we got to walk that back and say, if he gets to 3,000 based off of last year's stats, that's one hell of accomplishments. And so we just got to probably just give this guy some time to grow, which telling Texas fans, not all of them, but some, to be patient is sometimes an exercise in futility.
Yeah, it might come down to giving that kid a little bit of grace in the midst of what is a learning season for him and a lot of firsts. Look, what are your expectations, not Anwar's? I'm talking to you, the viewer. What do you think Quinn Ewers is going to do over 12 games? If he starts 12 games, yards, touchdowns, interceptions, leave those numbers in the comments. We'd love to see what it is that you think of Quinn Ewers going in to the season opener over a 12-game schedule. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and know that I will later tonight. I've got my OB at night show. Anwar's got Drunk Uncle tomorrow. We've got the modcast, lots of videos throughout the week here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. But for now, for myself and Mr. Richardson, we bid you farewell. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Be good. Later.